trusted guide in the world of U.S. immigration. We provide clear immigration news and insights and connect you with experienced attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylum to citizenship, we help you find the right legal expertise so you can move forward with confidence. ImmigrationQuestion.com. Real news, real answers, real quick. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's live webinar brought to you by immigrationquestion.com, your trusted source for immigration news, expert legal insights, and real-time conversations with licensed immigration attorneys. My name is Max and I'll be your host for today's important session, the human side of removal, defending families and vulnerable clients. Facing removal proceedings is one of the most overwhelming experiences an immigrant can endure. Families fear separations, parents worry about their children's future, and individuals often struggle to navigate a system that can feel cold and unforgiving. Yet behind every case is a human story, one that deserves compassion, strategy, and a strong legal defense. That's why we're here today to learn how to safeguard families and defend vulnerable clients facing deportation. We are honored to be joined today by attorney Kenneth Wincorn, a seasoned immigration and criminal defense attorney with more than 40 years of experience. Based in Texas, attorney Kenneth Wincorn leads a diverse and bilingual team dedicated to protecting immigrants and their families. His deep knowledge and combined with compassion, and cultural understanding has helped countless clients successfully defend against removal and preserve family unity. Attorney Wincorn, we are so pleased to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being with you. By the way, we're having a lot of technical difficulties, so for all of you who are watching and listening, bear with us because it's not us, but it's a little bit frustrating.
Thank you for that, attorney. But before we dive in, a quick but essential reminder: immigrationquestion.com is a two-in-one platform that connects users with licensed immigration attorneys. We are not a law firm and we are not affiliated with AILA or USCIS. All legal services are provided independently by attorneys within our network. Let's dive right in. Attorney Wincorn, for those unfamiliar, can you walk us through how removal proceedings actually work and the key stages immigrants should expect?
Well, in the immigration system, there are a number of different processes. In the removal system, which is the one most people are reading about and seeing right now, after an arrest, then the person is taken to the jail. If they're charged with a criminal offense, they're then held to make some disposition of that case. In some cases, they may be eligible to be released, and there are some really technical things that are very important to know about that part of the process because it's really tricky, and it is very important to have an attorney advise you because each case is different. And as time goes by, even the advice that you get from one day may change to the next with what's happening with the government right now, because we don't know what we're going to read in the morning and what we're going to find when we go to court. So having said that, once the person is put into proceedings or put into custody, the ICE is notified. They will normally put a hold on that person. And what that means is that if a bond is posted for them, they are not supposed to be released. They're supposed to go to ICE. So if you post a bond, it's supposed to cash bond. In some states you can post cash, others you can't. But if you do, you may lose that bond. So you need to talk to an attorney to know before you do it, because if you lose it and they do a rapid or accelerated deportation, you've not only lost the money, but you haven't accomplished anything. So you really should always consult first. So the principles I'm going to give you are those which would normally apply, but the attorney needs to tell you specifically in your situation exactly what needs to be done. Now, hold on just one second. On video. Okay. I'm sorry about that. My staff coming in and and I don't know what they're bringing me. I think it was some nice thing that I'll find out later. Anyway, but back to what we're talking about, because this really is important. The next step is to take care of the criminal case. And even that depends upon talking to your attorney. Attorneys who handle criminal cases don't necessarily understand immigration cases. And that goes the other way too. The immigration attorneys don't necessarily understand what goes into a criminal case. So the first thing you do is talk to an attorney. Normally, they'll talk to a criminal attorney because there was a criminal offense, and ask if they understand about immigration. 99.9%, if they're honest, will say no. And they'll consult with an immigration attorney to help them because we work together. I do both, but that's not very common. So what will happen is that there'll be a decision as to whether you should go forward with the criminal case or whether it's better not to, and to try to do something with immigration, and that depends upon the circumstances. In the situation where you plead out the criminal case, there are different situations that arise because of the type of offense. If the offense is one that involves a crime against moral turpitude, which is one where someone is considered to be of bad moral character, they're considered to be a danger to the community, then the chances of them being released, even if they're eligible for bond with immigration, is low, extremely low. Right now, in today's situation, most times the immigration courts, ICE won't set bond. That's the new rule. That's new. It wasn't the case a few years ago. But now, when they're held by ICE, they're not going to be released by ICE. They're going to be released potentially by a judge. And that will depend upon the type of offense they're charged with. One thing is very important. If you're picked up and you're a citizen, and this does happen, get with your family, get documentation, get it to your attorney, because they're not going to just accept your word for it. Prove it. Immigration has no authority over you as a citizen. If you are a permanent resident, you have certain rights. You need to insist on those rights. You will not always get the truth from the immigration authorities. Very often you'll get false information. So be very, very careful to tell your loved ones when they're in detention. Give your name. If you have an A number, an alien number, do give that. They're going to get it anyway. But don't volunteer information. It's much safer. Then there's a long process after that, depending upon what you might be entitled to for relief. In every step of the way, you really should have an immigration attorney working with you. There are ways in which you can potentially keep yourself from being deported. There is an expedited procedure right now where they can literally send you out of the country almost the next day. In some jurisdictions, they'll just put you on a bus. If you say that you waive your rights and you agree to deportation, you will be gone. And once you've done it, you can't change it. If you sign an agreement, in most cases, that agreement is lifetime. Even if you might have relief, once you sign it and agree to it, you very well may have given up your rights forever. And trying to fight that is a monstrous problem. So, it's a very, very complex system. But the best advice always is consult with a knowledgeable immigration attorney. Number one, American Immigration Lawyers Association is probably a great start because most AILA attorneys have been exposed to both of this. And some do what I do, which is crimmigration, which is handle both sides. And they can advise you, or at least they can advise your criminal attorney. We do work with the criminal attorneys. And the criminal attorney and the immigration attorneys work with us too as criminal attorneys. So it's a good relationship. It is very, very helpful. I know this is such a broad area that to answer the question would take more time than we have. And I know there are many other things people would like to talk about. But the one thing that I just want to emphasize so much is that this part of the process, get help. Don't depend on yourself. Don't you don't to think that they're going to be entitled to be released. They're not. It won't work. And once you've given up your rights, they're gone.
Thank you for the great advice, attorney. So, moving on with the conversation, what are some of the most common defenses against deportation, and how does an attorney determine which one may apply to a specific client's case?
Well, there are many. The number one, of course, is citizenship. And I say that because people don't know that they're citizens. They may have acquired citizenship when they were children, and it's automatic. So you always ask. There are the rare instances where somebody lived on the border, and I had a couple of cases where the Rio Grande River in Texas changed its course. And at the time that they were born in the United States. That area now is in Mexico. And we got out a Google map and looked at it and found out that they were born in the United States, proved their citizenship, got them a passport, and that was the end of the case. Even though they were charged with a serious crime, but they couldn't be deported. So most people are not charged with a serious crime, but once you've deported, you're deported. It's very difficult to undo that situation. Common situations, I guess. Defenses, permanent residents. Permanent residents have a lot of rights. You keep your permanent residence when you're picked up. It has to be taken away from you. You don't just lose it because you committed an offense or you're charged with committing an offense. Now, always keep in mind that in our system, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. That really doesn't do any good to say that, because with ICE, it doesn't get you out. If you're not guilty, you're the one who knows it, but nobody else does. So you're going to have to prove it. Another is trying the case and winning it, and then having some way to adjust status. It may be that you have a qualifying relative. I'm hoping that most of you know what this is, because this is a discussion. It has some technical terms in it. But in order to be able to adjust your status, normally you have to have a father, mother, a brother, sister. That's long time to get to adjust through that. But a wife and being married is a very married to a citizen is very powerful, and it's critical to you to be able to utilize that in order to save yourself from deportation and for adjustment. In many cases, if you get to your immigration attorney in time, they can file paperwork to start the adjustment process. And depending upon your jurisdiction, they may give you time to be able to do that adjustment. And there's no guarantees about anything, because every different part of the country is treated differently. It's another factor too, that when you're choosing an attorney, your attorney should understand what's happening in your area. If you're in California, it's different than in Texas or in Florida or New York. So most of us are familiar with those, but at the same time, often we might refer you to somebody in there to say, this is what the courts are doing in your jurisdiction. Other defenses, mistake, fairly common one. You shouldn't have been arrested, or you shouldn't have been. You're not deportable. You have status. Maybe you're working. Maybe you have H status. You don't lose that just because you're picked up. So you need to be able to have your attorney represent that first to the ICE officers. Sometimes that works, but most times you have to go to court. And the immigration courts take a little while. It's not that long, depending on where you are. But in some of the situations, like bond hearings, you can request them, and you get them fairly quickly. You get them within a matter of days. But there are other things that can take weeks. But it's important to tell your loved ones, be patient. Hard to do. It's a terrible situation. We are in the worst situation in our history with immigration. It's hard on everybody, even the lawyers. For us, it's very stressful. We'll try and do everything we possibly can for you. But I think that and again, the most important thing is come in and ask. And certain crimes you can be deported for. Certain you can't. Some others you can't. That your lawyer needs to help you with. And it gets a little bit complicated even there, because if you have one theft case, you may not be deportable. But if you have two, it's considered to be an aggravated felony, treated like it was something very, very serious. And that doesn't matter how far back it was. And here's one piece of very important advice that I can give to everyone. Be open and honest with your attorney. Don't tell them what you want them to hear. I get that a lot. People don't want me to hear something bad. Well, I'm not telling anybody. We have an attorney-client privilege which protects that information. Nobody can see it or hear about it, but we need it. I need it to be able to tell you what the effect may be. In some cases, I may not even know when you tell me about it if it's very unusual, and I have to look it up, and I have to read it, and I have to go read the statute and see how it's written and how it applies. But if you don't tell me, I can't do anything. I hope that helps a little bit. Again, it's very, very general, and the area is much broader than that. Each of these areas you could spend a few hours talking about if you really want to exhaust the possibilities. And each case is different, and we have to be careful. For instance, when I'm talking to you, if you're asking questions, I can't give you specific answers to your question. I'm not allowed to. For one of them, it isn't fair. But it's not fair to you because I don't have all the facts. So if you ask me a general question, I can give you a general answer, but I really can't give a specific answer until I'm talking to you and I can understand the circumstances.
Of course, it's definitely case-to-case basis, attorney. Thank you very much for giving us examples in order for us to understand further, depending on the case that we have for each client. I also wanted to add, attorney, many families in removal proceedings worry most about separation. What strategies exist to protect children and preserve family unity during these cases?
Argue for it. Your attorney has to literally go and cry to the judge sometimes to try to get sympathy, because there is very little sympathy in the system from the top. This is a big change. It's something that really hurts all of us, and I'm hoping we'll see that change soon. But right now, there's very little sympathy, and the government has been treating dividing children as a method to get people to turn themselves in. So where I used to say we wanted to have family unity and we wanted to keep the family together and we didn't want to harm the children, now we have a few people who have a tremendous amount of power in the government who don't believe that, and they don't care about the children. They care about catching the adults, and the adults don't have to be guilty of a crime. They just have to be illegally here. I know I'm not giving answers to people that anyone would want to hear, but it's really a case-by-case basis. It depends upon the severity of the deprivation. If you have multiple children and the children have illnesses, it's very important, and there's a lot of things you can do with that. If the children are healthy, they're not. The reunification is much less important. But if they're ill, if they're American citizen children, that's an important factor also. If they're permanent residents or citizens, then they get different consideration than anybody else. So if you've got a family where everybody's illegal, it's not going to carry much weight.
Understood, attorney. Thank you very much for that insight. And how do criminal charges impact removal proceedings exactly? And what should immigrants and their families know about the intersection between criminal law and immigration law?
This is the absolutely critical intersection. The criminal law affects all immigration cases. And depending upon what happened with the criminal case, you have the situations where you have a new criminal case or you have an old criminal case. Someone may have been convicted of an offense back years ago, and maybe they pled guilty because they truly weren't, and their attorney, this happens fairly often, just said, if you'll plead guilty, nothing will happen to you, and you're going to be, and you'll just be able to stay, and they might even have a permanent residence, and then they may wind up getting into procedure, and they may lose it. There is something that can be done about that. It's called the habeas corpus. We go back and attack that original conviction. We had a very, very important case called Padilla versus Kentucky, which the Supreme Court, in that case, the Supreme Court ruled that an individual is entitled to constitutional advice, constitutionally sufficient advice. They must understand the effect. So they're entitled to competent counsel. And that means if they had a criminal attorney who didn't understand, then you may be able to reopen that case, in which case retry it and win it. And an old case is very often not triable. So if you get it reopened, the chances of winning it are really, really high. The problem with that is that you need to take care of that before they get into proceedings, because that's a long process. So if you happen to have a case that happened to you many years ago, and you had a defense to it, or your attorney didn't give you proper advice, or you didn't have translation, that's automatic. If you didn't have translation, you couldn't understand, you should never have been allowed to plead. And if you can show that, then you can reopen the case. When you reopen it, you'll almost certainly win it. And that way you don't have a criminal record anymore. That's gone. And now you can deal with it with your normal immigration procedures. And if you have a way to adjust your status, you can do it. So that's one. Criminal record is critical. It's a thing that you hear all the time from the government. These quote horrible criminals that have led into the country. They came in with their children because they were violating the law. How did they violate the law? They came in illegally. They didn't have permission to come in. Well, to me, it's a very specious argument, but they're selling it. So that's considered to be a crime. So crimes affect everything. What to do about it depends upon what the offense is, and it depends upon what your equities are. Now, equities mean what things are in your favor. And those are always very important. And again, that's your attorney to help you weigh those things to see how important they are. There are certain crimes that are mandatory deportation. They're considered aggravated felonies, generally murder. But I mean, even there are exceptions to almost everything. I won a murder case from 1978. I mean, go back almost before anybody was born. And I found the lawyer who handled the case. And there was a Hispanic client. And in that situation, a Hispanic could not get justice in the courts in Texas. It was just a fact. So they pled out because it was impossible to get a fair hearing. And the lawyers testified to that he actually committed malpractice because he had to. It wasn't a choice. And the judge allowed reopening the case. We set it aside. He got his permanent residence back. And he is a citizen, and he now has 5 children, and I see them as my clients now. So things sometimes can be done you think are impossible, but you have to have time. You have to plan ahead to do it. That one took years to accomplish. You generally don't have that, but some of you may have that situation where you had an old case that you felt that you were wrongfully convicted. Your attorney didn't handle it properly. It may be worth bringing up a habeas corpus writ. And if you have a good judge, and it normally goes back to the same court that you were convicted in before. And if the judge in that court, it's probably not the same one anymore, but if that judge is a fair judge, you have a good chance of winning it. And when you win it, then your attorney should know how to either try the case if necessary, or what to do to get it dismissed. And when they get it dismissed, there's a special way it has to be done. If you don't do it that way, it still won't work. Even though you win, you can still lose. So there's a lot of knowledge that's required to be able to get this to be successful. But there are some things that can be done, and they seem like magic. They're not. They're procedural. That you just have to know and understand those procedures. Different crimes have different weights in our system. Misdemeanor cases, if they are punishable by penalties of less than 6 months, are much less serious, in some cases not even considered to be a deportable offense. If it's over 6 months, it can be. In different jurisdictions, crimes are defined differently. The penalties are different. So again, your attorney has to help you with that. And that's something for us. When we get a client in the office, we have to research that. Sometimes we have to go to the courts and find out what their particular local rules are. makes a difference in how we handle that case and what kind of relief you might have. Um, other in the criminal area, there's just so many things that can affect you. Uh, if the crime, who was hurt and how? Was there a gun involved? Um, if there wasn't a gun, was there strangulation? Was there violence against a woman? There are a number of things that can have an effect. However, if you happen to be the victim of the crime and you're a woman, you may have a protection under the VAWA Act, Violence Against Women's Act, and you might be able to correct your situation that might be impossible to correct otherwise. If you're a victim of a crime, as a victim, you have certain procedures, and if you're needed to testify, you might get the government, or actually the enforcement agencies, to get on your side, and your attorney can work with that and get you status, and very often get a permanent residence for you. So these are just some ideas. There's, of course, much more to it.
Thank you very much, attorney. And this is why we need an attorney in our corner, especially a competent one like Attorney Wincorn. That answer was all shot from the hip. So one last question from my end, attorney. Preparing evidence and testimony can be intimidating for clients. What practical steps do you recommend to build a strong and compelling case?
The first thing you should do, and I would suggest for everyone who has an immigration issue, get with an immigration attorney. Let them build a file for you. To get your documents, your evidence. This may be very important because nowadays you don't have much time to defend yourself when you're picked up. You may be literally being put on a bus the next day, and you need to stop it. And if your attorney has the evidence already, then people don't have to go out and find it and get it to bring up to ICE to show them, or to bring to a court. It's available. If they have to get it, it may be too late. So first thing to do, build a file. It's going to cost you, it won't cost that much because this part of it is not terribly time consuming, but it's going to be life-saving for you. Now, what documents do you want to have? If you are a citizen, have your citizenship. I had a lady yesterday who is a citizen. They stopped her because she came out of a place that they thought there was gambling going on. They took all of her documents, everything, which included her birth certificate. But she looked, she was Asian, and they decided that she looked like she might be suspicious. That's a horrible thing, as the Supreme Court said the other day. They can use that. They can stop you because you look suspicious. That's unconstitutional in my mind completely, but that's the law at the moment. So she lost her paperwork. Two blocks later, they stopped her. They arrested her, put her in deportation because she didn't have proof of her status. She hasn't got her documents back yet, but we have pictures. So we managed to get that straightened out. But there was a very good chance that we might not have been able to get that straightened out at all. So have your documents with your attorney. If something comes up, then the attorney can go down to the court or to ICE or whomever is necessary to show that they're wrong. This is a mistake. It shouldn't have happened to you. So this is, and also for if you have a defense or you're going to be trying to adjust status, let's say that you're married to a citizen and you want to file, your attorney needs to get copies of the papers. Well, if they're preparing it, they do, but they need copies of all your documents, and that will be helpful for you later, because just because you're in process doesn't mean that you're not going to be arrested. Hope that helps a little bit, but keep your records handy no matter what. Keep them in a safe place. If your house burns down, you don't want to lose them. You may not be able to replace them. If somebody comes in and steals your documents, that's a big problem. Keep copies. Put the originals in a safe place because you may need the originals. Get with your attorney, have them make a file for you. Make a file for the family. Take a look at other members of the family that might be able to, where they can adjust their status and protect them. And then maybe they can protect you once they have status. If they get citizenship, they may be able to sponsor you. And if you're not in proceedings now, there may be time to do that. If they're a permanent resident, for Pete's sakes, get citizenship if they're eligible. Don't just do it. Check with your attorney first because you might have some criminal record that you don't know about that might cause a problem, but usually that's not the case. And yet the citizenship is it's, at the present time one of the things that goes fairly smoothly. Very, very important. And once you have it, you don't face any of these issues.
Thank you very much, Attorney. To everyone tuning in from Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and beyond, thank you for being here. Whether you're a family member supporting someone in removal, a community advocate, or an immigrant going through the process yourself, we're grateful to have you join us today. If this is your first time with us, welcome. Immigration Question is a meeting place where immigration attorneys and individuals can connect. Our platform is trusted by many AILA attorneys who use it to meet clients. You can ask immigration questions for free in any language and get connected with a licensed attorney for legal guidance. And yes, many of you may also qualify for a free and confidential initial consultation. We are also proud to share that Immigration Question is now a BBB accredited, a recognition of our commitment to honesty, transparency, and serving immigrant communities with integrity. Attorney Wincorn, with your decades of experience in both immigration and criminal defense, what are your thoughts on Immigration Question, who is helping immigrants and attorneys connect in meaningful ways, especially in high-stakes areas like removal defense?
I think it's critical to ask questions. If you have questions, get with someone who's knowledgeable, and don't depend upon. One point I would really make: notarios. Do not depend on notarios. They are very important. In South America, Latin America, some countries, they do wonderful work, but they are not the same thing here. They do not know the law, they are not licensed to practice, and they can't help you. And the documents they file are very often filed improperly. So get information, find an attorney you trust, work with them. You'll have a much better life, and you'll be able to protect your family.
Thank you very much, Attorney. We really appreciate that. Before we move into the Q&A session, let me ask one more question for you. Given your extensive experience, what message would you share with immigrants and families currently facing removal to help them approach the process with both hope and preparedness?
I think you need to have hope because we have a dream here in this country. I got into practice of law because I believed in the Constitution, and I studied constitutional law, and that's one of my many areas of specialty. And that's really, we have ideals, and all of us are here because of that. Even if we're citizens, even if we were born here, we believe in those ideals. The people who've come here came because of these ideals in most cases. So keep those positive thoughts. Keep remembering that you are adding to this society. You are creating this country. Country was built on immigrants, all of us, no matter who we are. Even if we were Indians that came across the Bering Strait, they're immigrants. We think of them as the original inhabitants, and that's true. But even before that, they came from somewhere else. So you are with everyone else. You are with all the people of this country in the same situation. We're all dreamers. We're all dreaming about living in the best country possible, and it's up to us to make it. For those of you who are not citizens yet, become citizens. We want you to be able to vote. Voting is, and now you can see. People before we used to say my vote doesn't count. It does. It makes a huge difference. And if you can be proud of yourself if you become a citizen. That's one of the most wonderful moments in your life. And it also is the time in which you really take on even more responsibilities for everyone else, for everyone in your community and all other communities.
Beautifully said, Attorney. If you're just joining us, we've been having an insightful conversation with Attorney Kenneth Wincorn on the topic, the human side of removal, defending families and vulnerable clients. We're now moving into the live Q&A segment. This is your chance to ask your own questions. So drop them in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483. That's 516-703-3483, and we'll get to as many questions as possible. Okay, we have our first question from Damien. I got an interview for green card through marriage. Soon, what good answer to the question why I overstayed with my B1 or B2 visitor visa? Do I need a new affidavit from friends about marriage to take with me?
I can answer without seeing the end of it. The answer to it is yes. Affidavits are are really important because you're not going to be able to take a whole lot of friends down to a hearing, and also with your filings. So having affidavits is really important. Be sure that your attorney vets those affidavits because you want to see what's in them. Sometimes people can put things in those affidavits that can actually be harmful, but they are very, very important. They're testimony. They're testimony just like you're testifying live. Uh, the the situation with an overstay is corrected by marriage. So that's really not that should not be a major factor. But the reason for it is important. I think you need to go over that with your attorney to go over why. In most cases, there's no evil reason for the overstay. Just simply, I didn't get a chance to do something about it. That's and there's nothing wrong with that. That will not cause a problem for you. But what you don't want to do is to tell something that's not true. The worst thing that can happen in an interview is to be caught in a falsehood. If you say something that isn't true and you get caught, it's a real problem. It's even a problem if you're not caught then, but you're caught later. The only time that you see people lose their citizenship is for false statements. Not well, almost always. It's because of false statements on forms before or in hearings that later on it becomes apparent that they were untrue. That way you can lose. It's very difficult to lose citizenship, but that's the way. So truth is critical. Volunteering is not necessary. Don't talk more than you need to. Your attorney will go over that. Any attorney who's counseled their clients before says, don't just keep volunteering, because sooner or later you'll say something that it leads to something else, and that can cause a problem.
Thank you very much, attorney. Let's try to see if we have more questions. All right, we have one from Emma. If I marry an American citizen, can deportation be canceled?
Yes. If the deportation hasn't taken place yet, yes, the answer is yes. But if you marry the American citizen after you're already in proceedings, the chances of that having much effect and being able to adjust your status here is very, very problematic. It's very doubtful because they're going to say it wasn't done because of love and it wasn't done because you wanted to be with this person for life. You did it because you wanted to avoid deportation, and that is not a legitimate reason. So sometimes it may be better not to rush it. Talk to your attorney about that because what effect is it going to have on the system later on when you do apply? Because if the person leaves the country and they're not barred from coming back, then they can come back with consular processing. And I don't think we have time to go over what that process here, but talk to your immigration attorney about that because all of us are very familiar with that because we do it all the time. We won't have you shouldn't have a big problem getting married. That's never a problem. But once you're in proceedings, it's hard to do it because it's hard to get a judge to go down there to do it, and you can do it by proxy in some situations. But it's just probably not going to work. But it still doesn't mean they can't come back. It means that you can still adjust your status, but you'll have to do it outside the country.
Thank you very much, attorney.
In the consultation with the attorney, they can go over the length of time that it will take. But ultimately, it will work. It's just a question of how long.
Understood. We're getting a question from Marcelina. My asylum was denied. Can I stop deportation?
If your asylum was denied, depends upon how long after. If it's within 30 days, you file an appeal, give notice of an appeal, and file it. Then you're going to get a hearing in the appellate court, Board of Immigration Appeals, actually, and they'll look at it. And you also have right to appeal to the federal courts. So you have potential relief.
Great. I think that's all the questions that we have from today. Thank you very much, Attorney Wincorn, for sharing your expertise and guidance with us today. Your insights into both the legal strategies and the human realities of removal proceedings are truly invaluable. To our audience, thank you very much for joining us. Remember, you can always visit www.immigrationquestion.com to ask your immigration questions for free and connect with a licensed attorney. Many of you may also qualify for a free confidential consultation. If you'd like to revisit today's session or share it with a friend, the full replay will be available soon on Spotify. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. Join us again next week for another timely and essential conversation you won't want to miss. Again, thank you very much, Attorney Kenneth Wincorn. Thank you, and this has been a pleasure meeting you. Thank you, everyone watching. Until next time, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay encouraged.